let's get going. So, quick introduction. I'm Ian Goldsmith, Vice President of Product Management for SOA Software. Product management essentially means that I live at the interface between our customers and engineering. Customers being people that are using our stuff and people that we're working on convincing to use our stuff. What I want to talk about today is a slightly different use case for APIs, which is really the concept of how you can better enable business partners using APIs. I want to take a little bit of a different approach to this presentation, and so rather than focusing on the technology aspects today, I want to focus on the whats and whys, what you're really trying to achieve, why you want to do the things you want to do, and we'll definitely touch on some of the technology aspects. At the end of the day, I'm a horrible nerd, so I can't help diving down and getting a bit geeky every now and then. So let's start walking through the deck. So the first question I really want you to think about when you consider the role of APIs in partnering is, what do you want to get from your business partners? That's actually a pretty important question. It's not as simple as it sounds like. Quite often we see customers publishing services and APIs in order to try to deliver some capability they think might be valuable to their partners. But you have to understand that fundamentally you're in business. You're not in the business of altruism. You're not a charity. Well, maybe you are a charity, but at the end of the day, you're still trying to generate revenue, raise money for your company. So that's why you want to partner with people. You want to partner with people really to get more customers, so new channels, new opportunities, maybe better ways of reaching your existing customers. You're trying to increase the value that you deliver to the market. One way to think about that is you're trying to protect your price point. By delivering a higher value service or reaching customers in different ways, you can often continue to sell your products at a higher price point than you could if you delivered exclusively through a low-end channel. So take an example of a retail store. You can have a retail store on the high street that's going to be able to command a higher price for its products than it would if it were delivering all of its products exclusively through Amazon, for example. Because once the customer's in your store, you kind of have them, right? It's the used car selling game. And then I think one of the things that's often overlooked in partnering is making your business more efficient. So faster, lower cost business, better ways of doing business, better processes. Examples around vendor onboarding, your customer onboarding. You have a partner that can help you bring new customers on board more efficiently than you can do that yourself. Maybe you've got a model that enables you to engage with larger organizations, but you don't have a way of reaching small, medium enterprise or even end consumers. And your partners can do that for you without you having to get into that business. So fundamentally, though, what you want from your partners is to drive your revenue up, keep your price points higher, or reduce your costs. So those are really the main models, the main things that you're trying to do in a business. Business fundamentally is about making profit, and profit is driven by revenue or cost reduction or margins, which are kind of the balance of the two, obviously. So then you have to ask the other side of that question, which is, what do partners want from your business? What are partners trying to do? Your partners are also in business to make money. So why should your partners work with you? Why should they work with you rather than others as well, is the second part of the question. So the first part of the question, why should they work with you? Well, they're trying to make their own business better by delivering some of your products to their customers, or maybe by reaching newer customers because they have a richer product offering, because they have your products, your capabilities embedded in what they're doing. So sometimes partners can act as a simple channel for you. They're reselling your product into a market that you can't otherwise reach. Maybe they're delivering a value-added product. So they're building a bigger solution set, a bigger capability wrapped around your technology, or embedding your technology in their business. I mean, a good example there, of course, is Netflix. and an Apple TV or any of these TVs. The Apple TV isn't selling Netflix, but Apple TV is better because it has the Netflix app embedded in it, and Apple TV is a major channel for Netflix. So there's an example of partnering to deliver a capability to the customer that's highly beneficial to both the partner, Apple in this case, and the product vendor, Netflix in that case. So that's kind of a good example of the value-added product model and also a channel model. So the way that you derive value from a partnership can vary enormously. There's an entirely different model that we're starting to see quite a bit of, where partners are building a high-value business around something that you may offer for free. The reason you offer it for free is because it helps customers derive value from your core product. And I'm going to talk towards the end of the presentation about a specific example around the collection and publication management of agronomic data by one of our customers, and some things they do around that, which is really quite fascinating. What I do want you to think about too, in addition to what partners want from your business, is what partners don't want from your business. Partners are looking to you to provide them with business capabilities. They are not looking to you to provide them a technology solution. It may well be that the business capabilities delivered via technology, but they're not working with you for technology. You don't sell technology, you sell capabilities, you sell products or services. Now, obviously, there are companies out there that do sell technology. Their products and capabilities happen to be a technology offering, but for the most part, most of the large enterprises in the world are not in the technology business. They happen to use technology to deliver their business, and that's what you have to really focus on and understand. The technology is a mechanism for delivering a capability to your customer. It's all about synergy. You offer something that your partners can use to make more money and make you more money in the process. Now, of course, it is important to understand that your technology is the gateway for your partners to work with your business. So it's not that you can overlook it. You can't walk away from the technology that underlies the API offering. API fundamentally is a technology construct. But it's very important to recognize that the technology is less important than the capability that you're offering. If you want to succeed in offering APIs to your partners, you need to make sure that you're delivering the partners something they want. Obviously, there are things that the technology does for you. It makes it easier for the partners to use your business capabilities. It makes it easier for you to offer those business capabilities to partners in ways you feel safe doing. And we'll talk more about that as we go on. Now, of course, just because you're not offering technology to your partners and the partners are interested in business capability doesn't mean that technology is not important. There are a number of very important technology trends in the last few years that are really helping to drive and shape the industry, particularly as we start thinking about APIs. So things like the context in which you're interacting with the customer, that's particularly important, or it's becoming particularly important. Understanding where a customer is, how they're interacting with your business, and whether that may be the context that you may derive might be the partner. The partner itself provides a great deal of context, but even beyond that, the customer has a context that they're working with within that partner framework. So various different partners may be able to reach customers in multiple different ways. The customer may be interacting with them in a particular scenario. That's all part of that context. So being able to understand the context is a very important technological input. Obviously, social media is becoming increasingly important. Different ways of integrating with social media platforms, whether it be for simple ad placement, whether it be for further understanding context, whether it be for data mining. Various ways of reaching your customers and engaging with your customers through social media. That's an important API play in the technology realm. Things like software-defined networking are a little bit more nebulous, a little bit harder to come to terms with when it comes down to partner interaction. But you can start thinking about, well, if I have a rich infrastructure solution and I understand how to deal with software-defined networking, then perhaps I can offer a higher quality of service to one important partner versus others that may be less critical to my business at this time. Similarly, understanding data velocity, the speed of interaction with your customer, and the speed of the amount of data that you collect is growing so quickly. The ability to process that data, or more importantly, to understand what not to process, becomes particularly important. And having an API that provides a focused viewpoint into your business is a very important way of dealing with that. Active defense is clearly important in the API realm. You're starting to expose core business capabilities outside the enterprise. You better make sure you're doing it in a way that's safe and secure and reliable. You have to protect yourself against threats. When you start engaging with partners using this kind of model, you also have to be able to extend your active defense models to protect your partners against those kind of threats. And then obviously, finally, big data it's kind of an overloaded and abused term, but you have a lot of analytic or a lot of data that you collect about your business and about your partner's businesses and about your customers, some or all of which may be of interest to other parties. So there's an entire partnering model around analytics, around collecting data about what your business is doing and then surfacing that data through APIs to others that may purchase it from you. There are examples all over the realm, from like simple retail examples where every time you use your rewards card in a Vons store, that's collecting information about you. That information is typically depersonalized and then published to externally to analytics sources where they can process that and make broader decisions for various suppliers to the grocery chains about what products to deliver and how to improve the way they work. So that idea of big data as a core part of the business is becoming particularly important, and then you start thinking about how you can use APIs to surface that to partners, and it starts getting quite interesting. Anyway, that was a bit of an aside, so let's get back to the core question of what is your business. You've decided that you need to expose business capabilities to partners. So it's really important that you understand what business you're in, or you won't find it very easy to deliver the capabilities to your customers. So you kind of have to answer a few fundamental questions. Are you a product company or a service company? Depending on the answer to that, you may have a number of quite different considerations for how the technology can help you. Regardless of how your business is structured and what you do, there's almost certainly going to be a partnering model that will work for you. We have customers that span a huge range of industries, from manufacturing through retail, banking, insurance, healthcare, pharmaceutical, telecommunication, government. All sorts of different kinds of organizations use our products to create and manage APIs and engage with developer communities and engage partners. A lot of what partnering is about is finding ways to derive more value from your core business, or even from artifacts of your core business. So I kind of talked about membership rewards and the way that membership cards rather than rewards points. So the Vons example. But there's an interesting partnership opportunity that Vons surfaced as a result of the data it collects from its cards, which is their partnership with Chevron. I don't know, I assume this is nationwide, but certainly in California, when you use your Vons, which is a Safeway product, your rewards card, you earn rewards points and you can earn gas discounts. So you can get 10 or 20 cents off a gallon of gas, which is particularly important in California where our gas prices are quite brutal, based on how much shopping you do. So that actually drives quite a lot of loyalty for me. I do almost all my grocery shopping at Vons, and now I'm trying to really focus on doing more shopping at Vons because I want to earn gas points, which in turn drives me to use Chevron gas stations. I actually almost ran out of gas this morning looking for a Chevron station because I wanted to make sure I got my 20 cents off my gallon of gas. So those kind of opportunities are things that APIs enable based around a an artifact of the Vons business. Right? Vons is in the business of selling groceries. The artifact is the membership data and the rewards data they collect, and they're finding interesting ways of leveraging that data to enable partnerships that derive value to both parties. As I've mentioned, we're going to talk about an example around agronomic data collection, which is another. It's hard to argue this is really an artifact of the core business, but it's equally hard to argue that it's part of the core business. So we'll leave that as a teaser for what we'll talk about as we get towards the end of the deck. But at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is pass business value to your end customers. So with all that context around partnering and around what you want to get from your partners, what your partners want to get from you, understanding your business and understanding that partnership, and particularly partnering around APIs, is about delivering business capability rather than a technology solution. Let's answer the fundamental question, which is, how do APIs help your business, and specifically help you partner around your business? So obviously, there are lots of ways that APIs help your business, and we'll cover quite a few of them. What we're going to focus on in the next few slides and through the rest of this deck is really on the top tier here, which is channel engagement. We're going to take a quick detour here and look at the structure of the modern enterprise. Essentially, we like to think of the large enterprise as really being delivered in three tiers here. You have your data center, your core back-end infrastructure. You have applications built on top of that data center infrastructure. And by the way, the data center is a little bit of an abused term here, because this may not necessarily be your data center. It may be infrastructure as a service that you're leveraging from Rackspace or Amazon or whoever. It may be platform as a service from Microsoft or from Force.com, for example, or Heroku, which is my personal favorite. And then, but built on top of that infrastructure is a set of applications. Those applications can be things that you're leveraging externally, again, SaaS platforms, things you built yourself. But these are the fundamental building blocks of your business. These are the things that support your business. And then surfaced on top of those applications are a set of channels, ranging from your own sales team through the smart home, through mobile devices, through computers, connected cars, health monitoring systems, online shopping, all sorts of different channels that emerge out of that. What we want to focus on in the conversation around partnering is that top level. We think that the main value you're going to derive from APIs in a partnering realm is around exposing and reaching new channels. That's not to say you're not going to be partnering for your infrastructure or applications. I already threw a few things out there with Salesforce.com as a SaaS platform. It's clearly a partnering relationship, or Amazon or Rackspace, where you typically enable these kind of interactions through APIs. But at the end of the day, the above-the-line impact from API-enabled partnerships generally happens in the channel layer. So let's think about what that means from a channel perspective. What are you trying to achieve with channels? So let's sort of take a quick tour back into the dim and distant past here. In the good old days, the only way you really needed to reach customers was by having someone stand behind the counter in the general store on some dusty street in a western town with cowboys shooting at each other in the streets outside. Then along came the mail service, and as well as someone standing behind the counter, you needed people responding to letters and taking orders and delivering things. And then along came the telephone. You had to start answering the phone and being able to take orders over the phone and interact with customers that way. And that actually went on for quite a long time. Really until the internet, you didn't really have to focus too much on other customer interaction models. And then with the internet, you've had an explosion in the channels and the ways you have to be able to reach people. There are a lot of ways you have to consider for reaching customers, finding new customers, and even connecting to non-human customers. There are simple things that are enabled through an API model. Simple things like ad placement. How do I make sure that my brand is presented to customers regardless of the way they're interacting. You're all aware of having ads shoved in your face on Facebook and on LinkedIn, or if you use Waze while you're driving to work, you'll get context-sensitive ads appearing in Waze. That's all driven and enabled through APIs. That's in a mobile realm. Obviously, you have things like the connected car, gaming consoles, all the mobile devices, web applications, tablets. These are all ways of interacting with humans. Where it starts getting even more interesting is you start thinking about the non-human customer. So think about the way that a refrigerator might detect that you're running low on milk and might be able to order milk for you, essentially taking the human out of the mix. But if you're a grocery store who hasn't enabled that kind of technology, you're going to start seeing your business dwindling. So it's very important to understand the kind of partnership relationships that may need to appear. Perhaps Vons is going to need to partner with Siemens as a refrigerator manufacturer, for example. A lot of things that are starting to come out of this kind of world and this kind of realm. So it gets quite interesting as we look at the technology space and what's happening in that realm. So let's look specifically at the ways in which APIs can help you partner. I'm going to pick a similar but different diagram to walk through this here. So a few things that we want you to think about as specific examples of ways that you can provide APIs to enable your partner's business. And that's fundamentally what it's about, right? Coming back to that original concept. You want to make your partner's business better because that in turn drives your business. So there are very simple examples like partner onboarding. It can be very expensive to bring on a new partner, which is fine if you're a large enterprise who's looking for 2 or 3 partners to reach specific markets. It really doesn't matter if you invest in lawyers to work out legal agreements and a bit of technology, IT work to drill a few holes in the firewall and engage with things. But when you start talking about 10 or 20 or 100 or 1,000 partners, perhaps you're dealing with a developer community. You need to onboard developers. That process of onboarding people can rapidly become incredibly onerous and very expensive. So providing an API that allows you to onboard partners is incredibly important and really quite easy to do. As an extension, well, not really an extension, but a different example of that is customer onboarding. Customer acquisition is one of the main goals of most businesses. You want more customers, or you want more paying customers. So let's take an example of a credit card payment processing organization. They need to put swipe machines in retail stores. That's how they make their money, by processing transactions that end customers engage in. But they don't have a large enough or specialized enough sales organization to go and sell and deliver these swipe devices to every single customer, every single retail outlet everywhere in the world. So what you'll find these payment processing companies will likely do is they'll have their own sales force that targets large organizations like Target, for example. But when it comes down to the mom and pop shops, they'll probably partner with companies that specialize in delivering solutions to mom and pop shops. And so they need to be able to on-ramp the partners, but then the partners need to be able to easily onboard the customer. And that's where the partner has to have an API that they can use to bring on new partners to engage your business. Simple examples around product catalog. It may be that I have a product catalog that I publish to the wide world, and people will use that for online shopping. But I might also want a private catalog that provides different price points for partners depending on the partnering. I beg your pardon, depending on the partnering tier. Perhaps I have gold, silver, and bronze partners based on how much you sell, and I don't want the bronze partners to know how much of a discount the gold partners get. So I have a catalog that changes prices. Perhaps I even offer a different product set to different partners based upon their status. So only certain high-value partners are able to sell some of my products. So the ability to govern which aspects of my product catalog are published to which of my partners is particularly important. And subordinate to that are things within that product catalog around the ordering processes that may vary based on the partnering tier, tracking and models that I allow people to engage with. So those are the kind of capabilities that my catalog will need to offer. An increasingly or growing a growing scenario we see are customers publishing data services for analytics. You generally, most enterprises collect quite a lot of data about their customers, and you can sell that data. Whether you're selling the full data that has all the personal information, all that stuff, that's one model that we're obviously all familiar with. Or whether you're selling it or having it stolen is another question. But the back end, the analytics data that allows companies to interact with you to say, hey, I want to see how your customers in general are interacting with your business, so that the partner can help make their own decisions. Those are becoming valuable services. So the airlines collect an immense amount of data about their passengers. Being able to publish that for trend analysis by outside parties or even universities is a valuable capability that the airline can offer. And then it's down to the airline to find ways to monetize that, or ways in which that helps them drive their business. Maybe you ask the partner to provide you the results of their analysis, for example. But it's just having the data and making it available for analytics for an API becomes very valuable. If you're in the services business, you may want specific private services that you have to publish in a secure manner to your customers. So some customers may want to consume your content, and you need to determine which aspects of your content you're going to allow them to consume. Others may want to publish content via your services, your capabilities, and you have to decide who's allowed to do that and how they can do that and what kind of capabilities. And then you get into some interesting conversations around licensing. If you think about something like HBO Go, in order to use HBO Go, you have to have an account with DirecTV or Charter or Time Warner, and you log into HBO Go using your credentials from your content provider, which is very frustrating, particularly if you look at how much money you actually pay your channel, your network provider, for the amount of content you actually get. It's going to be interesting to see how the world of APIs will affect that and what's likely to happen in that market over time. I suspect that we'll find people starting to get rid of their DirecTV service and the Time Warner service for the TV and just take the content directly from the providers when that becomes available. But that's a different story. And then finally, we get into direct product delivery, so using your API as a channel, your product in this case being a technology service or a media service or something that you can deliver over the internet. Good examples there obviously are things like newspapers. If you can even find a paper newspaper in this world, I think things are changing pretty quickly there. So let's talk a little bit about the models for partner APIs. So what are the different ways that you as a business can choose to interact with your partners? We have an open model where you allow anyone access to anything. Essentially, you're publishing a public API, but for an API that offers value to businesses rather than end consumers. So a good example is something like Google Analytics, which is delivered through a freemium model. You can use Google Analytics up to, I think, 10,000 hits a month on your website, something like that. You can use Google Analytics for free. Above that, you have to start paying. Netflix is also kind of interesting example of an open API. You don't need to have a formal partnership agreement with Netflix. Anyone can access that API, but it's really only useful to people building TVs, etc. And in fact, Netflix is closing down or has closed down its public developer portal and is really focusing just on a partner API at this point. The next model in partnering is private API, where you're really offering the API only to selected users. It's an all or nothing model based on invitations. You have an API, you probably have a developer portal, but you don't show any content on it other than a simple message that says, if you want to use my API, contact me. And then you have an invitation model where I say, okay, I'll allow you to use this API. I will give you a user account on the portal, or perhaps you have a self-service concept on the portal where someone can sign up and say, hey, I want to use your API, and you have an approval role. But essentially, you have strict control over who's using your API on your portal. But once someone's in, they're in. You're giving them everything. Where we think there's a growing market is the idea of a licensed API, where you have fine-grained controls over which partners can see which aspects of your APIs. You're governing search results, documents, access rights. You can even use a license to control quality of service for each consumer of your API. And we're going to talk a bit more about licensing. And in fact, if you look at blog.soe.com, you'll see some blog posts on licensing and some of the things that are quite interesting that you can do around that. So let's look a little bit at some of the challenges that you're going to face with partner APIs. So what are the issues? What are the things that you're going to struggle with as you deliver APIs to your partners? Well, this really comes back to the very first set of statements I made. You have to be able to deliver an API that meets the needs of all of your partners. So you have to control the API lifecycle. You really don't want to have to build a new API for each partner. We actually see that more often than you might think, where customers will tell us that they have 200 or 300 services or APIs. And in fact, they really have one business capability. They're just delivering it in different ways to every single one of their partners. And that's a very inefficient model, and it's very difficult to live with. So you really need a governance capability. You have to make sure that you're building the right API, that you're building that API right, and that you're running your API right. Horrible English grammar there, but the concept is interesting. Now, in some cases, you may need to create a different API implementation for each partner or for some partners, but you should never build the same API more than once. So looking at this diagram, this actually comes from another blog post of mine from a couple of weeks ago talking about the types of requirements. You've got business applications that deliver the back-end functional requirements. You create an API which really adds non-functional requirements. There's a bit of a blurred line there because you're likely doing some kind of orchestration and tying in a number of back-end services to create the API. But when I use the term API here, I'm really talking about the business capability wrapped up with some non-functional requirements. Non-functionals being things like security and quality of service, reliability, those kinds of ilities, the things that the business capability has to support and sustain. But then you have different partners that may say to you, well, you know what, I really like that API, but I need to interact with it using SOAP. Well, it's an API that you first surface over REST. So, well, okay, that's no problem. I can use my API gateway to take care of the non-functional implementation specific requirements. So it's very easy for me to take my business capability and deliver it to various different partners in different ways. Some partners may want REST JSON, others may want XML. You may want partners who are looking for things like WebSockets. You've got to have some partners who still want to work in the SOAP realm. That's fine, as long as you can apply non-functional requirements via policy and meet your functional requirements through the creation and delivery of a governed API. The specific implementation details aren't really too much of a challenge. Anyway, a little bit of an aside there again. Another kind of interesting thing as a challenge you'll face is, well, how do I control some of the key flows in this process? How do I make sure that I have controls over the production of my API? How do I control who's registering to do what? How do I control the promotion of an app to use a production endpoint? So the process of interacting with your developers or your partners becomes a very important realm of the way you deliver an API. So as an example, this is a highly simplified instance of a process that shows the sort of interaction between an app developer and an API administrator, where the app developer comes to your developer portal. They look at some marketing information and they decide if they're interested. And if they are, they're going to review that information. But the information that's up there has to be accurate and current. So the API itself, the production of that API, has to be delivered through a governed process. And that's the first aspect of the API administrator's role. Making sure that you're building the right API and you're building it right and you're controlling the publication of that API into that externally facing realm. Now, assuming the developers reviewed the documentation, they've checked it out, they say, well, yeah, this is really something I'm interested in, they're going to attempt to register and create their own account, at which point you probably have an approval process where the API administrator or the business analyst will validate that the request is something they want to approve and that this is a user they want to work with, and they'll approve that request, at which point the developer can start creating apps and testing them. And at some point when they're ready to go, they can request production access, which becomes a much more involved and important process, particularly when you think about some of our customers in the financial services industry who are providing access to very sensitive processes that can involve the transfer of a great deal of money. You need to make sure that your developers, your partners, can verify their applications against sandbox environments, and you really need to make sure that they work properly before you move it to production. And so that production approval process can be really quite involved. Once it's approved, the app developer, the partner, can then begin to use their application and monitor the results. They can see who's using the application, where, how much traffic. They can troubleshoot all of those kind of things. But the integration between the developer or partner flow and the administrator flow becomes particularly important. Obviously, a challenge that you can't overlook when publishing any kind of API, but partner APIs more than anything, is the security aspects. How do you prevent or minimize the risk of threats and attacks for your data? When you integrate partners into your business through APIs, you become responsible for the security of that partner in the same way that the partner becomes responsible for the security of your data. So you need a security solution that helps you protect your enterprise, protect your partners, and keep partner information separate. More often than not, your partners will be each other's competitors. So it's quite likely that one partner won't want to, or you won't want one partner to be able to see any information about another partner, or even know that someone is partnering with you. So managing that separation of concerns across partner interaction with your APIs becomes particularly important. Quality of service is a very important aspect of all of this too. You need to make sure that you can allow just enough access for each partner. You need to provide more access and privilege to partners than you do to general users, but you have to manage that access. You have to be able to control quality of service so that you can prioritize one partner over another. Again, coming back to that partner tiering, you may have gold partners that need high volume access and they need fast response times, and you have to be able to control and measure that. Overall, you have to be able to protect your internal applications from abuse externally. So you need to be able to apportion available load across your partners and then manage that. And a quality of service solution built into a licensing construct allows you to do just that. And then, of course, there's monitoring. You have to be able to measure what your partners are doing so you can analyze the success of your channels, and you have to be able to help your customers troubleshoot issues and support them properly. You need to understand how your traffic is changing. You need to be able to shape that traffic and manage the way that your customers interact with you. And that's a monitoring exercise. How do you understand who is interacting with you in what ways, and how do you control that? And then finally is the process of how you're going to support your partners, and how you can foster a community amongst your partners, if you even can. It may be that due to the security things we talked about earlier, you can't create a community where the partners can help each other out. But in a lot of cases you can. You can have a social platform that allows partners to discuss your APIs and your business, create synergy around your business, so that maybe one partner can take one of your APIs and deliver a value-added service that becomes even more valuable in the context of another partner's work. So creating synergy amongst your partners can help further your business even more. So finally, I want to take a look at what our customers are doing and some of the things that they're doing with APIs and the way they're using our technology. So first, a very quick look at the platform, or the capabilities of the platform that we offer. Starting at the bottom, we offer a platform that includes comprehensive lifecycle management to help you make sure you're building services and APIs the right way, and that you're building the right services and APIs. Service integration is the process of creating that API, making sure that you're delivering on the fundamental goal of providing a business capability that your partners will want to work with, and leveraging existing backend infrastructure and applications that you have. Gateway services then deals with the non-functional implementation specific requirements. I need to deliver an API that supports SOAP and REST JSON and REST XML. I need to maybe deliver a JMS or an MQTT application to various different people. And I have to ensure quality of service and security and performance and reliability and all of these kind of things as I do that. And the gateway services do all that. Developer and partner engagement is all about the ecosystem, helping you engage with your partners, manage onboarding and on-ramping, provide the right information that encourages people to use your APIs. Because even though you may have a valuable business capability that your partners want to consume, that may not be enough. You may need to make sure that the way you present that is better than the way your partners present that. So the partner and developer engagement platform is key for that. And then finally, on top of all of that is analytics. You measure and manage all the traffic and the way your partners engage, and you need to be able to measure the impact of all of that, of your programs on your business, and help your partners understand the impact of that on their own business. So with all that said, how do our customers use that platform? Well, we have, I alluded to this example earlier, we have a heavy equipment manufacturer that's building an ecosystem around its equipment with a primary goal of doubling land yields by the year 2050. And it's actually, it's kind of an exciting project. If you think about one of the biggest problems facing the world in the next 20, 30 years, it really is that the population growth is far going to exceed our globe's ability to feed itself. And so optimizing yield is going to become particularly important. So this sounds weird. How is this an API example? Well, our customer sells heavy equipment. They sell combine harvesters and tractors and things like that. But what they do is they ensure that their equipment is capable of collecting an enormous amount of data about what it's doing. So it can measure moisture levels and nutrient levels and all sorts of other things about the fields that it's plowing. So what ends up happening is all that data that's collected by by the equipment is transferred up to our customer, to the manufacturer, where they store and manage it on behalf of the equipment owners, so on behalf of the farmers, the growers. And then the partnership is interesting in the way the APIs work, because the partners are people like seed manufacturers and universities who offer agronomic analysis tools so that a grower can log on to University of Wisconsin's agronomic processing application and say, hey, I want to share with you data about my fields 3, 4, and 5, and I want you to process that data and tell me what I should plant next year, when I should plant it, when I should water, what kind of fertilizers I should use and when, all with the goal of optimizing yield. So from our customer's perspective, the API is not monetized. It's not something they sell, but they do control the data quite strictly. They control the partners that are able to use it. And their goal is to deliver higher value to their customers so that their customers are willing to pay a higher price for the equipment that they're using because there's more value delivered. So it's value all around. The partners get value. If you think about a Cargill or a Monsanto, they're able to drive the growers to optimize their yield by using products that they offer. You think about the universities, there's an entire intellectual property benefit there. So there's a lot of value derived around that. And a very interesting example overall. Kind of touched on this already, the card payment processor, the driving growth by extending the reach of a branded card business. So they need to be able to offer credit cards to customers, but the cards need to be branded by a partner. So they can onboard partners through an API and allow the partner to issue cards in the partner's name that are back-end supported by our payment processor. And as another goal of the API that they offer, they can engage partners that can onboard end customers, so retail outlets that they can't reach directly themselves. So a lot of value driven through that API for our vendor, our customer rather. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about a media company that controls licenses to content from third parties. So as a customer of this company, I'm going to use DirecTV as an example. It's not, but I'll use that because I happen to be a DirecTV customer. So I know that I can go to Showtime.com or HBO Go, and I can watch Showtime or HBO online because HBO Online or Showtime Online can check my DirecTV account and see that I am subscribed to DirecTV, so or subscribed to Showtime through DirecTV. So there's an API that DirecTV surfaces that allows third parties to validate licenses. Kind of an interesting model. And you think about the broader implication of that and the role of companies like DirecTV in disintermediating content from the networks, and it starts to become kind of an interesting role and realm. So with that, I'm going to open it up to any questions. I'd like to thank you all for bearing with me to this point, and we'll take questions. Or perhaps I provided so much valuable content that no one has any questions because I answered them all. Yeah, that's a great question. We actually have quite a bit of information in our resource center. I think we actually just published a new white paper on OAuth. Certainly in the RESTful API realm, OAuth is the de facto way of authorizing access to APIs. And I kind of labor a little bit over the word authorizing because OAuth is often also leveraged for authentication, although strictly speaking, authentication isn't part of the OAuth spec. But it leverages things like OpenID, which are kind of related. In terms of privacy of data, generally SSL is, or SSL, TLS, HTTPS is the accepted way of ensuring security of data in flight. Of course, when you start getting into things like PCI compliance, and we run a PCI compliant SaaS platform as part of our offering, you have a lot more things to consider. You have the security of data at rest and encryption of all of that. But that's something we worry about on our SaaS platform. But we do provide guidelines that help you understand how you can implement that using our products in your own organization. And along with all of that comes sort of data masking of your auditing data and any tokenization if and when required. But so there's a great deal of complexity in API security. But the good news is that if you contrast where we are today with where we were in like 2001, 2002 in the SOAP realm, the security technologies are there and available, and they work well. And things like OAuth 2 have made implementing security really much easier than it used to be. It depends what you're trying to do with security, really. If you want to authenticate application access to your API, no, OAuth isn't necessary because you can do that using HMAC signed headers. Lots of other ways of doing it. If, on the other hand, where OAuth really comes in is if you want the users of your applications to be able to authorize access to their data, that's where OAuth comes in. So coming back to our example of our heavy equipment manufacturer, the manufacturer, our customer, stores a lot of data, but they don't have the right to offer that data to anybody. It's up to the grower to work with our customers' partners and say, okay, I'm going to authorize you to access data X, Y, and Z. And that's an OAuth scenario that really only OAuth handles. What OAuth does in that realm is it allows you to delegate authorization decisions to the owners of resources, as opposed to having to try to manage those kind of grants yourself. Sure. Well, that's a really good question. I think that what we've seen, one of the major things that we've seen in the API realm is the advent of the developer portal as a replacement for a registry. So the idea of a standards-based UDDI registry that people can search and find things has essentially gone away, been replaced by effectively a website. So publishing your APIs to a website is the modern equivalent of a UDDI registry. Now, the technology that you use to do that varies a lot from vendor to vendor. So we have an API management solution that essentially surfaces information automatically into a portal. So when you choose to create a new API, and you construct an API using our gateway, that automatically gets published essentially to a registry, which in turn exposes that information into a live developer portal. So the portal has become the replacement for the registry. And the big difference is that developer portal includes documentation, it includes self-provisioning, it includes the ability to see monitoring data, it includes the workflow capabilities, all the things that frankly a registry UDDI should have done but never did.
No, they're not two different things. I mean, there's actually, again, we'll redirect you back to our blog site at blog.soa.com. We've got a few posts on this topic, but they're kind of two sides of the same coin, or a better analogy might be tip of the iceberg, where your service-oriented architecture exists inside the enterprise, creating a whole bunch of services, and then the API is the way that you surface the capabilities offered by those services to external parties and partners. In some cases, you may allow partners to directly connect to your internal SOA services, but increasingly, customers are using API technology to manage all the external interaction. And in fact, we're also starting to see partners use API developer portals and API technology internally, not as an alternative to SOA services, but as another way of expressing those SOA services. API, SDK, SOA service are kind of they're points on a continuum, with an SDK being the way you build an application, which the SDK itself likely uses an API to interact with a piece of business functionality, and that API itself is quite likely a facade on top of a set of existing SOA services. What you really don't want to do as a large enterprise when you start down the API path is you really don't want to start rebuilding applications and rebuilding things you've already done using SOA technology. So being able to leverage your SOA services to create APIs that then enable consumption through SDKs is really the path that we see most commonly happening these days. No problem. Thank you for the questions. And I think, sorry, go ahead. Yes, the platform, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the platform provides a developer portal that includes the API or App Store as one of the features. It's essentially a catalog capability built into the product. And the API itself, or the platform itself, is also built on top of an API. And in fact, just as a teaser, watch this space for upcoming announcements about that API and some things that we're going to be doing there that are quite interesting. Thank you. And I think with that we're out of time. We've reached the end of the hour, so I'd like to thank you all for participating, and we'll look forward to touching base with you all in future events. So thank you.